I still remember the first time I saw Marcus Russo. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. It was at an art gallery opening downtown, the kind of place I only went to when dragged by friends. The champagne was lukewarm, the walls were covered in what I generously called experimental chaos, and the crowd was a mix of socialites, wannabes, and people pretending to know the difference between postmodern and postmortem. That's when Marcus walked in. Tall, sharply dressed, flashing the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He worked the crowd effortlessly. A compliment here, a light touch on someone's shoulder there, a perfectly timed laugh. Within minutes, he was the center of gravity. And when his eyes landed on me, I felt it. The rush, the thrill, the disbelief that someone like him would single out someone like me. "I don't think we've met," he said smoothly, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus." "Lily," I managed to say, trying to act cool even as my heart did somersaults. He didn't just talk to me that night, he focused on me. We laughed over the ridiculousness of the art, the pretentiousness of the guests, and the stale canapés. By the end of the night, I was convinced I had stumbled onto something rare. And when he kissed me outside the gallery, slow and deliberate, it felt like the world blurred at the edges. It was 3 months later when Anna reached out. Anna was his ex, the one I had seen on his Instagram when we first started dating. They'd been together for over a year, and then suddenly, nothing. Her face disappeared from his feed as if she'd been erased. So when Anna messaged me, I was curious and admittedly smug. "Hey, I know you don't know me, but can we talk?" I was tempted to ignore her, but curiosity won. We met at a coffee shop where she sat across from me, twisting a napkin in her fingers. "I know you think I'm just the jealous ex," she started, "but I need to tell you, Marcus is dangerous." I laughed. Actually laughed. Dangerous. Marcus. Anna's eyes were sharp, unwavering. "Not in the way you think. He's a climber. He uses women to get ahead, socially, financially. He's already pulling you into his world, isn't he? Parties, events, business meetings." I bristled. Yes, we'd been going to more events lately, but wasn't that just part of dating someone ambitious? "Look," Anna sighed. "I fell for it too. Just don't lose yourself." I left that coffee shop rolling my eyes, telling myself Anna was bitter and insecure. But something she said stuck. Don't lose yourself. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Marcus introduced me to people I never dreamed of meeting. Influencers, CEOs, gallery owners, socialites. Suddenly, I was getting invites to charity galas and exclusive dinners. First, it was intoxicating. I swapped my old jeans for designer dresses, my simple heels for red-soled stilettos. Marcus gifted me a bracelet just because, whisked me away on a weekend trip to Miami, and posted pictures of us with captions like, "Power couple in the making." But the small cracks began to show. He grew restless when I wanted a quiet night in. He frowned when I wore a dress that didn't match his vision of perfection. He started coaching me on how to network at events, correcting me when I spoke to his contacts. And slowly my world shifted. My old friends started fading out. "They don't get where you're going," Marcus would say. My evenings were filled with events and my weekends with strategy. Anna's voice would sometimes echo in my head, but I always pushed it away. It was at a charity gala when the unease turned into suspicion. Marcus had been distant all night, engrossed in conversation with a tech investor. When I approached, he placed a hand on my back, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Lily, darling, why don't you go chat with the PR girls? This is a bit technical." I swallowed my irritation and drifted away, watching him laugh and lean in close with a woman I didn't recognize. Later, when I asked about her, he waved it off. "Oh, just someone helping with investments. Don't worry." But I did. It was Anna who broke the spell. She messaged me again, this time with a photo. Marcus, arm around the same woman from the gala, at another event just 2 days later. A woman he told me was just business. I confronted him. His charm slipped for the first time. Why are you even talking to Anna? She's unstable, you know that. But his eyes darted, his jaw clenched, and my heart twisted. That night, I stayed up scrolling through photos, reading old articles, piecing together a puzzle I had refused to see. Marcus had a pattern. Every girlfriend, a rung on his social ladder. Anna had been a journalist. Before her, it was the daughter of a real estate mogul. And now me, Lily, the PR assistant to one of the biggest marketing firms in the city. The final push came when Anna asked to meet again. This time not to warn me, but to ask for my help. "I've been working on a story," she said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were photos, screenshots, and testimonies from women Marcus had dated, all following the same cycle. All left drained, discarded, replaced. "We can expose him," Anna said quietly. "But I can't do it alone. He's too careful now." I stared at the folder, my hands trembling. Had a choice. Walk away quietly, or stay, gather evidence, and help take him down. The folder sat on my kitchen table all night. Barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, flashes of Marcus's smile, his touch, his whispering promises flickered in my mind, overlapping with the words in Anna's folder. Manipulative, opportunist, serial social climber. By morning, my decision was made. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to help Anna bring him down. We met in Anna's tiny apartment, far from the glitz Marcus surrounded himself with. She laid out the plan carefully, her voice steady, her hands trembling only once. "Marcus is planning something big. Can feel it. If we're going to stop him, we need proof, messages, recordings, witnesses." I nodded, still half in disbelief that this was my life now. Step 1 was simple: act normal. So I did. For the next few weeks, I played the part perfectly. I was the doting girlfriend, the enthusiastic partner, the flawless +1. Marcus beamed at events with me on his arm, and behind the scenes, I became his sounding board for business plans, investments, new contacts. But now I was paying attention. I noticed how his mood shifted depending on who was in the room. How his charm was a weapon, sharp and calculated. How he always positioned himself next to the most important person at the table. And slowly, I began collecting the pieces Anna needed. One night, Marcus took me to a private dinner with a wealthy venture capitalist. Everything was perfect on the surface. Wine poured, laughter shared, deals hinted at without being spelled out. But halfway through, when I excused myself to the restroom, I overheard Marcus on the phone in the hallway. "She's useful," he was saying. "For now. After the pitch, we'll reassess." Froze. He wasn't talking about a client. He was talking about me. I wanted to scream, confront him, look out. But I remembered Anna's words. Patience. We need the full picture. So I stayed. And it got darker. Marcus started pushing me to introduce him to executives at my company. He needed warm introductions, he said, to help him secure a major partnership. I realized this was his endgame with me. He didn't love me. He loved access. Anna and I met in secret, now almost like partners in a quiet rebellion. "We have enough to publish," she told me one night. "But we need a final nail. The proof he's been setting you up." Came sooner than I expected. Marcus asked me to sign off on an internal document at my company, a harmless-looking NDA. But when I read the fine print, I saw it. Buried clauses tying my name to a consulting deal he was brokering, without the company's knowledge. If anything went wrong, I'd be the scapegoat. That night, as Marcus poured us wine on the balcony, I placed the NDA on the table. "What's this?" I asked softly. He smiled. "Just routine, babe. Trust me." I didn't. I pulled out my phone, recording in my pocket. "Explain it to me," I pushed gently. And Marcus did, walking himself right into a confession about the consulting deal, the investors, and why my signature mattered. When he kissed my forehead and told me I was his secret weapon, my skin crawled. But I kept smiling. The next morning, I handed the recording to Anna. She worked fast. Within 48 hours, her exposé was live. The Social Climber. How Marcus Russo used love to build an empire. The article exploded. Screenshots, voice clips, testimony from past girlfriends. It was all there. And I wasn't just a source. I was the closing voice in the article, detailing how I caught him in his final play. The backlash was immediate. Marcus's inbox flooded. His investors pulled out. His social media turned into a war zone of angry comments and unfollows. But the real blow came when his carefully curated network, the one he spent years building, collapsed. No one wanted to be associated with him. He called me once, twice, 20 times. I didn't answer. Days later, I ran into Marcus on the street. He was thinner, unshaven. His tailored jacket rumpled at the edges. For the first time, he looked small. "Lily," he said softly, "can we talk?" I looked him in the eyes and felt nothing but a strange, sharp pity. "I think you've said enough," I replied and walked away. 2 weeks after the article went live, I received a package. Inside was a handwritten note from Anna. "Thank you for your courage. One last thing you should know. I wasn't just his ex. I was his wife. Divorced quietly last year." "He never told you, did he?" I sat there stunned. He'd hidden an entire marriage. The final layer of his deception. And as I folded the note, I realized I had never known Marcus at all. The days that followed the article were strange. I had thought I would feel triumph or maybe some kind of righteous satisfaction. But mostly I felt hollow. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Friends I hadn't heard from in months texted me, some congratulating, some fishing for details. My coworkers at the firm looked at me with a mix of sympathy and fascination, whispering in the hallways, pretending not to stare when I walked past. Marcus disappeared. Or so I thought. One evening, as I was walking home from work, I spotted him across the street. He looked like a shadow of himself. Hair unkempt, designer jacket wrinkled, shoes scuffed. He didn't see me. He was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing sharply as if trying to make a point that no one wanted to hear anymore. It hit me then. The man who had always been the center of every room was now invisible. Kept walking. That night I met Anna one last time. We sat at a quiet bar, the same one where she had first shown me the folder of evidence. "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes softer than they'd been before. I sipped my drink, thinking carefully before answering. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "I think I will be." She smiled, a sad kind of smile that only comes from hard-won experience. "You were brave," she said. Gave a small laugh. "I was naive." "Sometimes they look the same," she murmured. We parted without promises to stay in touch. There was no need. We'd been thrown together by Marcus, and now that his shadow was gone, we could both step into the light alone. The next few weeks were quieter. I went back to work. I called my old friends, the ones I had ignored during my time with Marcus. Some were angry, some were relieved, some were just glad I was back. I realized how much I had let go of myself trying to fit into his world. How easily I had slipped into his rhythm, his expectations, his plans. I moved out of the sleek apartment Marcus had convinced me to rent and back into my small but cozy place across town. It felt like home in a way the other place never had. And just when I thought the chapter was closed, the twist arrived. Letter. Not an email. Not a text. An actual letter, handwritten, slipped under my door. It was from Marcus. The handwriting was careful, almost formal, as if he had rehearsed each stroke. "Lily, I don't expect you to forgive me. I know you probably never want to hear from me again, but there are things I need to say. Things I should have said before. You were different. I know you don't believe that. I know I lost the right to say it. But you were. You made me feel like maybe I didn't have to keep climbing, keep chasing. And that scared me more than I can explain. I'm leaving the city. There's nothing left for me here. But you. I hope you find someone who sees you, really sees you. And I hope you keep that fire I tried so hard to control. Sorry, Marcus. I read it once. And then, calmly, I folded it and tucked it into a drawer. I didn't need to read it again. Months passed. Life steadied. The city, once filled with memories of Marcus, slowly became mine again. I walked the streets without scanning crowds for a familiar face. I laughed with friends without thinking of what Marcus would have said. I found joy in the small things. An afternoon coffee, a quiet Sunday, a new book. And then one day, as I scrolled through the news, a headline caught my eye. Marcus Russo resurfaces in Europe. New venture, new image. There he was in a sleek suit, a new woman on his arm, smiling for the cameras. I stared at the screen, my heart calm, my mind clear. Clicked away. Because the real victory wasn't the exposé, or the headlines, or even watching Marcus fall. The real victory was knowing that I had stepped out of his story, and into my own. And I was never going back. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.